Okay, so forgive me, I'm just bringing the list of reviewers up here. So I'm Peter Weishar, and I'm going to be hosting or emceeing today's review. And what we're going to do is we have our judges here, Greg Andrade, Ian Mac Vittie, Jessica Piatti, M.K. Haley, Terry Brown. Thank you very much for participating. Of course, Nate Naverson, this wouldn't happen without him and Themed Attraction. Just so my quick introduction is I'm the director of the UCF Themed Experience Graduate Programs, and I'm also the president of the Themed Experience and Attractions Academic Society. Our symposium that is partially sponsored by Themed Attraction will be in November 17th at the Orange County Convention Center. And if you're interested in that, I'd be glad to talk to you about it afterward. We're going to do about 5 minutes for each of the for feedback from your reviewers. If the student is here that's being reviewed, you have a couple of minutes. You can ask some questions after that, and we'll start with I think we're starting with the technology, right? Technology for rides and show systems, and the first project is Candlelight Frights. So I'll let the reviewers and the take it from here and start to talk about the projects.
Is that
Hi.
student here? Is a student who worked on that here?
I think Sydney, I think that was yours. Am I right?
That was Sydney?
Yes, that's correct.
I would like you to reach out to some of us beyond this,
Okay.
because this didn't hit any of what we were evaluating.
Yes.
So it's hard to review. If this were a game project or a virtual world kind of project, the feedback would be very different. So have a look at the names of the reviewers who are here, and I can also connect you with subject matter experts in the gaming community who can give you a little bit more focused on what you submitted. But what you submitted wasn't what we asked for, so it was a little bit hard to give feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to apologize. It seems that I misunderstood the final deliverable. I didn't format it as a formal pitch deck, and I didn't necessarily intend for this to be a viable product in the industry.
None of that was required.
I want to apologize.
Yeah, no, none of that was required. We got quite a few, but what you submitted was a game, a video game. And that's not at all what this is. An attractions based. As our industry moves forward, these sorts of digital interactive experiences are becoming a bigger and bigger part of it. So maybe you're just like too forward thinking. But I just want to let you know that some of the feedback you got might not be useful because we weren't evaluating it as a game. So after this session, like take the time to reach out to us one-on-one, and we can give you more focused feedback on the submission.
That would be wonderful. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
I really appreciated that you put in the notes, hey, I'm just teaching myself this.
Yeah.
Right? Here's what I'm interested in, and here's what I'm doing. Gonzo, right?
Well, thank you.
So that did give some context.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll reach out after the session.
Thanks.
So Ian, I know you reviewed the technology. Do you have some input on this project?
I think similar to what MK was saying, I was really trying to figure out how it really fit. Putting together something like that all on your own and kind of figuring out the code to link everything together, I think is a big feat on itself, but really didn't fit the category. You know, whether it's game development or you're using a game engine for interactive experiences, again, like MK had said, that's growing. We're doing a lot of it here. So I think as you go to move forward, if that's a direction you want to go into, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with Joe, who's doing a lot of stuff in Unity and Unreal to show you how we're using it in different playmaking experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to hear more about it. So thank you.
Any other feedback from some of our reviewers? Greg or Jessica?
Yeah, if I may, I myself switched recently from the themed entertainment to video games. So I would like to give some feedback that I think are useful not only in the game industry, but they also bridge over the team entertainment industry. In this case, is about sources. Like in your submission, there are some sources from already like 3D websites. And in general, when we create a space, yes, we use some reference 3D models, images from other spaces, and already made websites like Shutterstocks or other stocks images. I want to stress the importance of the re-elaboration of source materials. So as creators, we are not taking one-on-one things from the real world or from already made assets, but we might take it as an inspiration, but we have to make the extra step in re-elaborate, and it's also the fun part of our job. So I think that's very important. It also add your special input, your creativity, and a little bit of your voice into what you are making, and that will make your project stand out compared to one-to-one reuse of the assets. Just quickly go through my notes again, and so I would like to add just a little feedback on the game itself, that it's also useful indeed for the team entertainment. When a guest or a player approaches a teamed environment, it's important to fully immerse the guest or the player into the environment by slowly telling what's going on, and the classic where the player is, why is there. So all the little part of storytelling are important both for the team entertainment environment and a video game. So instead of just throwing a person right in the middle of your game, just add a little moment. Those are usually introduction levels for games, and maybe pre-show for team entertainment and attractions that help the immersion and also create some expectation that the guests would like to be met and even exceeded. And that gives the wow moment that everybody remembers. That's it.
That's really helpful insight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you mind if I ask, when modifying the assets that you find online or find as inspiration, what software do you primarily use in the industry?
Well, that depends on the industry. Every company uses its own software. As a newcomer, I would suggest just start Blender. Is an open source and is really becoming the standard in the industry. And
Okay,
support.
thank you.
No problem.
So Sydney, this is Greg. Yeah, I was a little confused trying to review this project. And then I sort of figured it out towards the end there. But I think even though we know this is a digital environment, having in the presentation mode, an outline, even a line diagram of the organizational aspects of space. In other words, you know, here is an entry zone, and here are the different areas you're navigating. Almost like the little, you know, little maps that you see in other games that track where you're going. Just something that we can see, that we understand, sort of just the lay of the land, right? Just a diagram that shows us kind of where we are within the construct of the environment in the game, in just a simple plan view even, right? Just so we can get our head wrapped around where, you know, what we're navigating through, right? It would have helped. I'm an architect, so I'm like keen on that kind of thing, but I think it helps because I was trying to orient myself between the one scene to the next, and I wasn't sure, you know, where I was within scene to scene. So that's kind of all I had, but it looked fun. I mean, I like the idea. So
Thank
good
you.
job.
Oh,
Well,
thank
terrific.
you. That's
Terrific.
very helpful feedback. Thank you.
So we went a little bit over 5, but that's great. But let's move on to the next project in technology, which is Time Loop. And Elena, is that how I pronounce her name?
Yeah,
Is
it's
here.
Elena.
Okay, and so she's here from University of Buffalo, and I'll let you guys give her your feedback.
Well, I'll start real quick. The only thing, Alina, is that I sort of felt was, first of all, I love the project. It's really cool. In many instances, the host character was a little bit, at some point that I would like to have seen that guy go away and then have some mental autonomy to like take on the environments without having him narrating what's happening. If that makes any sense. It's just felt like his presence was good in the beginning to kind of introduce us to the scene and what's happening and why. But then later on, the experience should have just taken over without having to be narrated, right? Other than that, that was my only pet peeve.
Greg, are you talking about this one or are you talking about the mansion one? I don't believe Time Loop had a host narrator, did it?
Oh, this one's the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm confused. I'm so sorry. I'm talking about the wrong project. Okay.
I was thinking I missed something.
Yeah. You missed me missing my brain. Okay. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that.
But like the first bits you said were spot on. Like this was, why did this team do this for another event or for a class? Because the documentation was freaking bananas. Yeah. This was absolutely beautiful in terms of the level of detail, the professionalism of the documentation. I really appreciated that you gave me a high level view and you're like, don't believe us? Click this button, right? And then we saw all the math. And so that was really, really lovely. What you were hanging your hat on was this P-loop idea. And you never, that was the only part that had no credibility to me in terms of why has it never been done before? Is it dangerous or not interesting, or just has never been done? What specifically, at one point you mentioned this is better. The acceleration is better, but there's no scientific data behind that. Is it a G-force on my sternum, which makes me feel a certain way? And the only reason I had the expectation for that level of physiologically credible data was everything else did. Your structural data, like everything else was like super, crossed your I's, dotted your T's. And this one thing, which was your biggie, which the technical innovation part, which is this category, and that is like what we're looking at, you sort of never explained why it was so innovative. And did you do any research on that? Did you just, because no one had done it? Was that what you're...
Yeah, so no one had done the P-loop before, and I think we have it on like SolidWorks as a CAD drawing, and we had some information on it, but it definitely would have been better if we included more about that.
Well, and the first thing I go to, by the way, I reached out to 3 coaster force subject matter experts to be like, what am I missing here? And they're like, no, it's not in there. And the thing that my mind went to, one of the world's first loop coasters was a perfect circle. Catherine the Great commissioned it in Russia, and promptly people snapped their necks. The G-forces were not survivable. So now it's like a little bit more of a sloping, ovoid kind of shape instead of a loop. And so in my head, I'm like, coaster designers aren't dummies. If there's no reason this has been done, is it because it'll snap someone's neck? Right? Like I went to that extreme end. But those are the sorts of details I wanted you to prove to me physiologically why this was pretty. I knew it was unique. No one had done it, but why had nobody done it, and why was it awesome?
Thank you. That's a very, very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think when I looked at it, it started to build momentum with the 2 guys at the beginning leading into it. And then for me, it kind of fell off from there, from kind of a story perspective. I mean, it's a coaster, and there were some elements of some visualizations of maybe some theming that you would do that seemed to be lacking of what we were doing and why. Lots of data, you know, engineer, math guy. But for me, looking at this, it was almost too much. I'd rather have kind of that exec summary that kind of boiled it down a little faster for me to kind of go through that. And to what MK had said, you know, the P loop was the whole thing, but really didn't find a lot of supporting details of the whys and the what fors. You know, breaking necks probably wouldn't get you a lot of return customers, so it might not be a good business model. But I would have liked to have seen, you know, some of the operational aspects of what that coaster is, making sure you guys understand what that is from initial investment through what it would take to kind of run that thing. This was about innovation, and aside from the name itself and the shape of the loop, I think that's where it fell short for me the most.
If I
Thank you.
can, if I can add something to your submission, or like, well, we already established all the sort of mechanical and mathematical part that you have to do all your studies. From really a storytelling point of view, I think it's important when you do this kind of pitches to establish what's the target audience you're talking to, and make a difference between selling a story of a coaster and selling a piece, a technical part of a coaster. So in this case, and it's something I also noticed for other submission, you're trying to say how nice is this engineered equipment that you developed. So your target audience is probably companies like Vekoma or Intamin that would like to hear about this nice idea. So if you should sort of focus on that side, so prove the maths, and then if you want to add versatility, you can explain how your equipment, it could be a coaster in this case, it's versatile to add a story. I found that in the pitch now, these were a little bit of mishmash, so none of them were strong enough to overcome sort of the other. So focus first on the piece of equipment and then show how different themes could be applied to it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback on the technology. So we're going to move to the next category, which I think is concept art. Concept art, computer graphics, and illustration. And the first piece that's up is The Marvelous Mysteries of Ashburn Manor, and it's a Ringling College of Art and Design. And I think Brendan isn't here, but as Nate pointed out, we're being recorded, so I'll let the reviewers start and give feedback on that piece.
Everything Greg already said.
Well, Greg, did you have more to talk about that particular?
Yeah, that's what I got confused with that one. But yeah, what I was saying was I think it's important for in any experience for the guests to get the intro and then let them loose, right? Let people experience whatever it is they're going to experience and see what they're going to see and witness things. And, you know, as we know, everyone has a different cognitive level of how they absorb environments, right? So at some point it gets a little distracting in this one where the host is continually directing your attention. And that was my only issue with this. Otherwise, I thought this was a really great project. I liked the way it was presented. The art was really nice. Idea was really interesting. So yeah, that was it. That was it for me on that one.
If I can,
Especially as this was the illustration category, really, really gorgeous. Like in terms of the category of reviewing and the work submitted, the 3D models and the 2D illustrations were just lovely. Some of the more painterly stuff didn't have the same look and feel. It clearly wasn't a different artist who prepared that, or for some reason they just went totally stylistically left on that. So you may want to think about continuity of look and feel, as well as You know, if the bar is here, you can't have a few things that are here. So think about that in terms of illustration quality.
I could just say that I was really taken with you know, the storytelling here, and the, you know, the sort of braveness of bringing a you know, a host in a different way. I thought the kind of experimentation that the students showed in putting together this story was really quite fascinating for me. And you know, I could go into a lot of the details about the various illustrations, but I liked the breadth of what was presented and how it was put together, and I liked the large reach. I mean, you know, I guess I could agree that the you know, the host didn't have to stick around during the whole thing, but I could see a lot of exuberance in behind all of this work, and that really attracted me, and I think it was excellent.
If I can add one last thing to all just that was said. First, it was like awesome having actual ride through. I think it's the best way to communicate to other people your idea. A little bit, a couple of technical feedback. It's important to disable the preview for before rendering. Just sometimes you notice some preview from, I think it's Unreal or Unity, and check a little bit of the roughness. You know, there's some technical on the 3D as the category is also that. And the main remark I had on this one is about the overall way the story was told. I think when you are in a dark ride, it's important that the guest discovers themselves what's going to happen, and not that every part of the story is told before opening of a new room. So just teach all the party and said, this is going to be the next room, and let us, through your nice ride through, discover what's next.
Okay, terrific. Any other feedback before we move on to the next project there?
I think the same for everyone is that there's a lot more feedback. We all have pages of notes, so feel free to reach out if you would like something specific feedback for your project. And also, this is the disclaimer for, we're asking groups of 1 to 4 to do the amount of work that 200 people do in the industry. So we're all like, what's your food and beverage plan? Sorry, that's just what the whole scope would be. And we know that 2 people aren't going to do that, but it is part of the full package industry-wide, so you should know that.
Well, and another caveat is the fact that, you know, all of these projects would be pitched live, right? I mean, when you enter a competition, it's a different kind of submittal than it is when you're in the room with the project pitching it, right? There's a huge difference in how that works, because when you're there pitching, you have the visuals, but you also have the verbal input, which is a whole nother layer and a whole added dimension and added information for the viewer, right? So when you're just going to launch something into a competition, it's important that you realize that nobody knows anything, and you have to start from the very basics of what it is. And you know, it's almost has to be sort of, I don't want to say dumbed down, but it's got to be very clear and simplistic about how the viewer that has to absorb this project without you there can dig in and understand it, right? It's a little different than if you guys would have been in person presenting. I think a lot of questions that I would have had, I could have asked or might have been answered in the verbal portion of the presentation, but anyway.
Okay, thanks, appreciate all that. And that holds for all the different pieces. So we're going to move on to Behind the Frame. It's from the Ringling College of Art and Design. I don't believe Autumn Taylor is here, but again, she can catch us on video. So I'll let you guys start and give us your feedback.
I was a little lost in this one, I have to say. I wasn't sure if the students had put in the artwork that they meant to put in. You know, I had a little difficulty finding a thread, like how do you get from here to here and all. But then I went on to the website and I found the same work and it was so much better. And there were some 3D illustrations in there and so on that weren't part of this presentation. So I have to say, I think there was some actually really stronger work than showed up here on this presentation. You know, I mean, I give the student credit for doing some graphic work and then putting that into 3D and, you know, trying to explore how rooms would work. But when it comes to things like the planning and things like that, it was really unclear to me. So I was going to give it lower marks until I found the stuff on the online that was so much more superior. So all I can say to the student is, I wish you put the other stuff up there, especially that animation that I found.
Yeah, I think that is my feedback as well. When you prepare a pitch or a competition or something similar, including your portfolio, which is like the most important thing you're gonna do right now as a student, it's important to put all your artwork, all the things that you need to explain a concept in one space, that it's as easy to understand as possible. And you know, when you're a student, you just want to present your work as a portfolio piece because you need to be hired. And as a professional, you want as well to be hired by clients. So you have to make the people to be easy for people to understand easy what's your intention and what's your goal.
So MK, do you have any feedback on this one?
Yeah, my comments were identical. There's no context. It was a random string of images that were absolutely not the level of quality we would expect from a graduate student. Submission is unreviewable due to its lack of depth and detail. What's missing? Like, it was very clear that this is, like had been mentioned, does the student know that this is what they submitted? I don't think it's what they meant to submit. And I did the same thing. I went to the website. I'm like, this can't be. Oh no, there's some pretty good work on the website, right? So that's why my question, my feedback wasn't this is terrible. It's like something's missing. There's a disconnect here.
I thought the general concept, the big idea on this was brilliant. I loved the idea of exploring artists in the round. I think that they could have pushed that even further, though, you know, and really incorporated you know, other aspects that are not 2D, like filmic elements and voice overlays and images of origins of some of these artists, where they came from, to give you a little more rounded context of who they are and what they were doing and why they were doing what they were doing when they were doing it. But it's an interesting idea for some interactive spaces based on famous art and artists. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and opening up conversations with the estates of these artists, if you know they're no longer around, to talk about usage, right? That's a really interesting avenue of exploration that students don't usually tippy toe into, but there's a whole path of setting up best practices for that, copyright issues, IP, reuse, things like that.
And also, I forgot one little thing. When you do a floor plan, it's important to put the door space. We need to understand where we can enter a room and when we can get out. And if you wanted to plus a little flow diagram would also be very nice to understand where people go when during the experience. So put the doors is very important.
Okay, terrific. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. Our next project that we're going to move to is Curio, where the adventure meets curiosity, and that's from SCAD. And Kentaro, I'm not sure is here, but again, we're going to be recording this, so I don't know if anybody from that project is here or not, but I'll let you guys start to do the feedback on Curio. Greg, you might have something to say about a SCAD student work.
Yeah, I know this project. The one thing that SCAD students tend to do, and I mean other students as well, but you know, from coming from SCAD is scope. Is they just want to take on huge amounts of scope. And I don't know, maybe you guys realize or not, but you know, they have only 10 weeks to do a thesis, and otherwise they're on their own time. It is not an ample amount of time, especially, you know, I know this project, I think it would have benefited from reducing scope and increasing other aspects of storytelling and imaging, because I know Ken's a very adept at, you know, he's a great illustrator, can draw anything. But I think it's a great project. It just unfortunately, if he had another 10 weeks, it would have been a great project. You know, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on, but it's tough, you know, like it's just a time thing. You know, there were scenes that the drawing was amazing, and then there just needed to be some people in there showing the activities or things like that, you know. And there were different zones, and it was been, you know, to have actual master plan that, you know, it could have been a 10-week project in and of itself, but you know, that showed us really intimately what's happening in this place would have been really cool. But I thought the project was really interesting idea. You know, as we know in the retail world, you know, we're seeing a lot more of this kind of thing where we've created a venue that is an adventure on its own, and he sort of mixed that with some theme park components and rides and things. So kind of interesting in that manner, because I haven't seen that quite done at this level. But anyway, I liked it. I thought it was cool. That's about all I have.
I could jump in and say that again, I was impressed by the boldness of us, you know, not being in the school, but being more in the looking for, you know, people to hire end of the game. I'm seeing somebody here who, you know, is demonstrating a lot of breadth of talent, and a lot of, you know, kind of grasping of the realities of, you know, you got to make money on these projects, you got to separate out, you know, people have to know where to go and when to, you might have to pay admission, all that stuff. And you know, if I was looking for somebody to hire, I would be all over this person because of the breadth of skills, you know, being able to do characters and plans and think about zoning and architecture and the references and all of that. Boy, you give this person a few years of you know, going through projects the way we do in not in school. We go through them really fast, you know, because there's a team involved always, and you're never you know, you can work much faster and you're compelled to because of the situations. But somebody who has this level of skills, I think, shows such a wonderful amount of promise, and I'm glad that, you know, that the big reach was taken so that people like me can see, you know, what this person is capable of, regardless of what's left to be unresolved or what is unresolved. I think this is just wonderful to see. So that's it for me.
Yeah, Ken's actually already working at Bodri Interactive in LA, so yeah, he's doing good.
Surprising.
Okay. Any other feedback from some of our other panelists?
Yeah, if I can add something a little bit on operation wise, if I'm not mistaken, well, this project has two main areas that connect to each other. And the main way to connect these two areas is through a ride, but there wasn't a mention of actually like a footpath or other ways to connect. And that's, I think, operation-wise, a little bit of a problem, as it could create easily a bottleneck. So we want to avoid. It's nice to have a ride that connects, like happens in down in Florida with the World Express, but we have to make sure that it's not the only way to connect two areas. And operation-wise, also it's important to, when you have interactives, to make sure that these interactives are not connected to something like signage or lamppost. So something operational that needs to work at all times, but it has to be something that if visitor have the time and wants to dedicate the time to an interactive, then they can. But it doesn't sort of subtract from the main experience that is usually a little bit more passive of a theme park. That's it.
Okay, terrific. Our next project is another SCAD piece, Middle of Woods. And I think Valerie is here too. Yep, Valerie's there, but she's muted. But I'll let you guys give her feedback. And since she's here, you can maybe ask a couple of questions afterward as well.
I can start with this one. It's okay. So Middle Woods. I really like the presentation. I think it shows a very nice presentation font. So it is clear, it's very cute, the scope is small and easy to come across. I think your submission sort of allow us to talk about the big topic of our time, which is AI-assisted images. Well, I don't have an answer yet because things are evolving so fast that we don't know yet. There are some ethical things involved, and in particular because this submission is from a concept art point of view, it could be, you know, some people appreciate AI work, some people not. So if you want to position yourself as a concept artist, be aware that this is a hot topic right now, and as a concept artist you want to sort of make sure you're on the right side. So make sure things on your portfolio are your own. Well, that said, AI, I think, is still a very useful tool to bring out ideas, not necessarily to use as a base. That's, you know, just my personal opinion. Regarding the artwork itself, I thought it was very cute. And I would suggest you to work a little bit more on the silhouettes of your facade, as if you sort of classically black out your artwork and you just only the silhouette, I think it lost a little bit of recognizability and the shape was not as strong as it could have been if you work out first on silhouettes and then build on the facades. For the rest, was very lovely concept. Really like the lore, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about that.
I could say also the AI thing intrigued me. In fact, the idea that this person had not only gone forward in time with AI, but backward in time with the 3D built model. I thought that was kind of cool that, you know, that she's reaching in both directions to sort of encompass in as many ways as possible to think about how to present ideas. And I think if I understood it right, this is somebody who's coming kind of into this industry from other places. And so I liked that she chose something small enough that she could really get her arms around, like the interior of this space and the authenticity of what it's all about. And you know, and exploring a little bit with the floor plans and visualizing the space. And then the detailed references in that interior elevation really charmed me. So I think this is going to be a great, you know, addition to the industry. And as I say, I think this was modest, but a lovely step into this industry for this student.
Yeah, especially as AI is such a hot topic. I just got the latest university rules on AI in the classroom yesterday. Semester starts today, right? So it's a very evolving topic, but there are very specifically jobs for concept artists posted where you need to know how to use AI. So what I appreciated most about this was the breakdown of the step-by-step of the process. This artist didn't hide anything, didn't pretend. They didn't do. So it was a really nice showcase of here's where my skill sets are. Some of them are research, some of them are marketing, some of them are illustration, and here's how I got to that final place. Michael Libby, who presented at SAIT last year, has the quote, AI is not going to take your job. A designer who knows how to use AI better than you is going to take your job. So being aware of that, understanding where it's appropriate and how to communicate it, how to properly document it, That is a very hot skill set right now. A little bit more of exposition, right? The concept art that was AI generated, and then the final 3D models. One had a very fantastical, very organic shape, like these rolling sort of soft shapes, and then the builds were very structural and rigid. And so I didn't know, was that a creative choice, or did the artist not know how to make soft rolling shapes with that tool? So again, communicate very clearly. Here's what my inspiration was. Here's what the final build was, and here's why. Because being able to communicate to an employer your skill sets and how they apply over the process of a pipeline, invaluable.
Well, hi Valerie, how are you? I think one of the things that building a 3D model does is it actually literally is a structural element. So, you know, you can't bend, well, you can, but it's a real tough deal to bend structural members and beams, especially in the direction that, you know, MK was mentioning about the illustration like this, right? That's the exact opposite way you want to have timber or whatever in loading. But anyway, I love the model. It's totally dynamite. Now, the only thing is you probably didn't have that model professionally shot or had someone who's a student of photography shoot it for you, right?
Nope. Yeah, that was me in my kitchen.
Okay. So Bing, no. You spent so many hours on that model. You get someone in a room with the proper lighting and shoot that thing because it deserves it. Because you're not going to have that model under your pillow for the rest of your life. It's going to go away. You know. So get someone who really knows how to shoot models to shoot it for you, because I saw that model, as you know, and I'm telling you, the photos you took did not do it justice. It's a way cool model. It needs to be shot proper lighting, maybe with a little backdrop or something, a little forest thing or something, because it's a great model. So I don't know if other students are going to hear me, but if you have a great model, get it shot by someone who is a photographer. I know the iPhone pictures are really cool and all, but someone who really knows how to make photographer, you know, a real photographer will make that model look amazing. So that's all.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to the next? Okay,
Well,
terrific.
Thanks for all your
sorry, go ahead.
feedback.
So we go to Candy Smith's Forge from UCF, and that's Britt McChesney, and she's not here, but I know she'll be watching this after we record it. So I'll let you guys start with your feedback on that project.
I can go. I really like this concept. Again, small in scope, so allows to have a little bit more concentration on the project. As I said before, I think when you're talking about an innovation or this type of equipment, it's important to understand who you're talking to. I think for this kind of pitch presentation, you should be talking to potential suppliers, then acquire, and then the supplier, as professional, just go to the supplier to get the machine. So in terms of cotton candy, it's nice. In the presentation, it's stated that it's like a problem that is not very themed at the moment. And I want to stress in this case, it's not necessarily a problem. Usually it's just a matter of budget. So what I call the budget usually go to what I call the hero pieces if you have a limited budget of this kind. So it's most likely that you're going to invest money on your main signage for your e-ticket ride than to the cotton candy. That said, I think it's nice if you go on with this project by making off-the-shelf kind of product that will be very useful for designers like us and to teamed. And so from your idea should be developed more on this case and show, again, instead of a story, attached, but it should show, instead of a particular story that you came up, it should show the breadth of how nice and it can be used for different themes. And operational wise, I think you can sort of so operational wise, there were some of little things that I have some feedback, like you have to make sure that this object is very compact, and make sure that your robot is away from little kids harm and weather harm. So maybe you can just develop a nice case that have both inside the robot and the little cotton candy. For the rest, no, lovely.
One of the reasons that Nate put this program on to begin with, the attractions showcase, was to give professional feedback for students, particularly at a time when internships were lost. They weren't going to conferences, they weren't even in school in person. And so the full breadth of the feedback that the reviewers provide is along those lines. You know, great idea, maybe you should spell check, things like that. And so it is shocking to me how many people have their cameras off right now. Like, I mean, I had a student who took class from his pantry once when we were doing remote class. And so he would have the camera on to say hello and then goodbye, but then no camera because he was surrounded by chips and pretzels and stuff. But in an environment where this is a professional exchange, unless there is a reason you're in your car or your pantry, the expectation is that we can see you. And so that is odd that so many of these cameras are off right now. And so for this particular project, again, I really appreciated how well the student broke down their skill sets. This was I called it a nice romp. It was a nice romp through a variety of skill sets, very clearly communicated. I can do this, and I can do this. And because it was a very simple, focused idea, that all came across very clearly. I also was so excited by how original big pieces of it were. We see so much stuff that is pretty derivative. And sure, like, this sorts of outdoor vending exists. Cotton candy is huge right now. There's a lot of really interesting things going on with cotton candy, but overall, the character design, the machine design, it was just refreshingly original. And so you're being evaluated on your technical proficiency. Do you know how to use the tool? And you're also being evaluated on creative innovation. And so I really appreciated that. Hey, I've never seen this before. What's going into my eyeballs?
I would agree about the originality and the refreshing take that this all was. And again, I see this as somebody who's demonstrating this is what I can do. This is, you know, this is for thinking forward. Where might I, you know, be employed? What kinds of things would I like to be involved in? Here I see somebody who's really interested in story and can produce characters, can come up with things that are, you know, off the wall. You know, this whole idea of creating a kind of a robot and a host. I love that that there's, you know, uniforms or costumes. Again, as a person who would be looking for people to, you know, work with, this is somebody that I could see really growing with, you know, because of what skills I see here. And the kind of open mind that's, you know, jumped into this and come up with this unusual idea. I particularly like the mashup at the end, where she really kind of opens the door to telling you, these were the references I was looking at, you know, medieval and steampunk and things like that. That's great. That's the kind of thing you want to see being explored early on in any kind of project. And a little one like this, you know, you get to see, okay, this is a person who can kind of find ideas and play with them. So I was really happily impressed with this one.
Yeah, I thought this was a really cool project. I had a little trouble trying to discern whether this is a kiosk or a cart. In other words, there was a plan that showed sort of a back of house storage component to this that separated it from what I originally envisioned when I saw it as something that someone would write up on the bicycle, you know, write it actually and pull in somewhere and then, you know, fire up the cotton candy. So that was the only comment I had, is that, you know, make that decision. If it's a kiosk, it's a kiosk. If it's a cart, it's a cart, and call it one or the other. Because I'm not really sure. Like I can't remember, but I don't think it takes much infrastructure to produce cotton candy that I can remember. So maybe it should just be a cart that can just roll up and start making cotton candy in a cool location or whatever. But
I
I
would
loved it.
absolutely invite this cart to my birthday party.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for that. So we just have one last piece, I think, which is Beyond the 100-Acre Wood, which is another SCAD student. Crystal is listed here, but I'm not sure if anybody who worked on the project is here, but I'll let you guys do your give your feedback on this project as well.
One of the things we're looking at when we review is context, right? Like what lens are we looking through? Is this an Illustrator? Is this a 3D model builder, master planning? And this was tough because it wasn't clear what the primary skill set being put forth for evaluation was. And so that was difficult. It also didn't appear to have much expertise on what a traveling circus was. So there was a theme, there was a genre that didn't seem to fit. There was the theme of Winnie the Pooh, which used copywritten characters. That was not allowed. So this was in some ways hard to evaluate because I didn't know what I was supposed to be evaluating.
I guess I would say I had somewhat similar problems with knowing exactly where it was going. The one thing that I, couldn't help myself but admire, though, was the the underlying direction here. This idea of finding another aspect of entertainment that has to do with healing, and to explore that, and to think about that as something you could you actually do that? I mean, I know personally, and in the work that I'm familiar with, you're looking for delight, you're looking for meaning, sometimes, looking for memories, with families or whoever. But this idea that healing might be part of it, and overtly you might think about that in a conceptual way. I thought that's an interesting, background approach. I did have some problems with exactly where is the strongest skill set here. But again, I did really admire the whole idea behind it.
Yeah, I think it was a great concept. Got to really watch out when you use IP that's something that's already got an ownership, because you can't show this project to Disney in an interview. They'll just kick it out. They'll say, okay, next. So students have to be aware of that. You cannot use, if your big dreams would be an Imagineer, don't use any Disney IP in any of your work in school. Lastly, I loved this. I thought it was really cool. The only thing is that students, you guys got to remember that the medium has to be part of the message, and vice versa. In other words, Winnie the Pooh is a very soft and cuddly, happy world, and a lot of these images were very dark with black backgrounds and subdued coloration. I'm not sure why that happened, but I just feel like it didn't connote or denote to me. It wasn't in keeping with the world of Winnie the Pooh, which is like this very, happy world. Yeah. That's all I had.
If I can add something to that, I think when you work with IPs, if it's your own or someone else, it's important to establish how you want the guests to feel that IP. What are the emotions connected to this IP, and what people expect or want. If it's your own one, what do you want people to experience, and how you want to relate to this character. And in this case, we had this sort of indeed like a dark version of horror with this made up what was the puppet cart. They were selling plushies of mixing the character. I was like, that will never happen. You can't put arms of Eeyore on a Winnie the Pooh character. So make sure you know not only the values behind an IP, but also the usage of it. I think it was very interesting, the idea to add a new character to the story. But in this case, despite the intention was very nice about the story of this magician, there's no relations between the Winnie the Pooh characters and this magician. And that is, I think, a missed opportunity to create a connecting link to add a value to the Winnie the Pooh IP itself. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, almost exactly on time there. So I believe that was our last project. So I want to thank the reviewers again for all your work there. I know you guys have a good deal more feedback than you were just giving quickly now. And for those who are going to be watching later, I would encourage you to reach out and contact us and get that additional feedback if need be. Nate, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up before we wrap up?
Yeah, we are not finished. We still have one more review
Oh, we
session.
do.
That's on Wednesday. Yep. Same
Oh.
time, same place. For the master planning projects. And Freddie Martin from Storyland Studios will be joining us. A couple gentlemen from JRA, Jack Rouse in Cincinnati, and the Falcons creative guys. We'll be reviewing those projects. So we will see you, and you're all invited in exactly 47 hours.
And thanks to all the students as well. This is something on top of all their other obligations to even prepare and submit stuff for this. So well done you for participating.
Yeah, although I wasn't a reviewer, I did take a look at a lot of the work and it was really impressive. And as NK said, I know everybody's doing this outside of class. So congratulations on the work that you guys produced.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. I think it was a really great session.